This is Ken Hance, best storyteller in Texas, and welcome to our podcast. Saying of the day is learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope and pray for tomorrow. It's a good saying. We're going to talk about several things today, and one is the fortune tellers. This happened in Montgomery County, and some fortune tellers got a little engrossed in their fortune telling, and they told these people that they need to do certain things. And one of the things they needed to do was give them $600,000. Now, if your fortune teller's telling you, give me 600,000, you got to go, well, I don't know. That's a fortune for you, but not for me. The first retainer I ever had as a young lawyer was a guy for his wife was a fortune teller. And in Lubbock, they used to arrest fortune tellers for vagrancy. And that there had been some claims that fortune tellers would talk to people that were married, depressed over the death of someone, and they'd get them on a loop where they'd, make them pay so much a month to find out how they might be able to communicate with the deceased and everything. And so this guy came to me, his wife was fortune teller. He didn't want her to go to jail, but if she was going to jail, he didn't want her to spend much time there. He wanted her out pretty fast. And he gave me a retainer of $25 a month. That's a pretty small retainer. And then I could charge them for whatever they had. And every once in a while they'd come to town and they'd be fortune telling. And I don't think, had one that was threatened with arrest, and they left town. And but in fortune telling, they play a lot, especially with the internet, play a lot on looking up your past and saying things that apply to you and make you feel that they really can foresee, and they can look into your background and they can really tell you what's going to happen. They may be good, I don't know, but I've never spent any money on fortune telling. One of the ones that got charged had told this woman that she was plagued by a curse, a powerful curse, and that to keep love and happiness, that she needed to have them intervene, and that they could mentally intervene, and they had great powers, and that it would cost, and 600,000 was one of the costs. And I would have just said, just let me be miserable. I'll go ahead and be miserable for a while rather than paying you to, try to get that where I'll be happy all the time. And that the district attorney's office has filed charges on them, and we'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted on that. A second woman that was asked for increased personal items, and they asked details about her life, and they found out things, and they asked her to give her certain jewels. They need to cleanse those jewels, and they cleansed them out of her possession into their permanent possession. And so you got to be careful. There's always someone out there trying to do something. Also, there was a story out of Poland that there was a rumor got started on the internet, and anything can happen in this day and time, that Dąbrowski, Poland, there was a company that they bought 150 metric tons of potatoes, and they were going to use it in making a disinfectant. And the rumor on the internet was that these potatoes were free. And so they have recordings of people going to get them, and they, one guy took a tractor. A lot of people took pickups and trucks and cars. One lady took a wheelbarrow, got her wheelbarrow and went down there and filled it up. And they're now claiming they may, if they don't return them, they're going to face legal consequences. I would say that some of the potatoes I would not want returned in their present form. That those potatoes may have been cooked and eaten and whatever. So I don't know what they'll do about the great theft of potatoes, but that 150 metric tons of potatoes, they were coming from 20 and 30 miles away to load up on potatoes. Also, there was an announcement that a guy named Edwin Castro won the $2 billion jackpot and on the big time lottery winners, and he gave some money to the people that lost their houses in California in the fires last year. And I think it was to him it was $10 million, but $10 million, you split up some of those homeowners, that was a big amount to them. It wasn't that huge to him, but he at least was sharing with society. There is a BuzzFeed and Wall Street Journal. I did a survey, and 76% of the workers that are still working from home said they would quit if they had to go back to the office full time. And I'm not so sure I wouldn't want them to quit. We were gone a very short period of time from our office, and it's just hard to do things if you're not there at the office. We work from home one day a week, but to turn out the work product, you got to be there. We've got some federal agencies have not gone back. President Trump is pushing hard on that they go back, and that some counties and cities have not adjusted to that. But I sincerely believe that they need to be on the job and be there and doing a good job. And part of that, they ask about what is your dream, and a bunch of these people, their dream was to retire. Seemed like they're already retired. And one that they said their American dream is that I want to move to the coast of Scotland with my cats. That's the American dream. And stable employment and decent housing was another one. But that's we'll come to that in just a second. Some of the more unusual things that are happening in the workplace. There's more instability in the workplace today than there has been any time in the past. We hope to change that going into the future. Parents, Gen Z kids, are saying that 500 to 900 a month they spend on those kids. That's 25% do that. 1 in 20 spends $1,000 to $2,500 a month on the Gen Z children they have, and 1 in 7 spends more than $2,500 a month. They're spending. That kid's going to be a big spender. They're spending a lot of money on them, and so they say various things. I mean, some of them are just natural things you'd spend child: food, clothing, and shelter. But others are items of entertainment for the Gen Z crowd. There is a company called Henley Global is in London, and they do a survey each year of the most powerful passports in the world. Who has the most powerful passports? And the way they judge it, out of 199 countries, how many can you visit without a visa? Singapore was first. They can go to 193 destinations. And the last was Afghanistan. And with all the unstable things that have happened to them and the Taliban taking over, you can only go to 24 countries. U.S. was number 10. Canada was 9. A lot of them tied at different places. But the more freedom, the higher you ranked. South Korea was number 2, where North Korea is the bottom of the list, but ahead of Afghanistan. So Afghanistan's at the very bottom, and North Korea is, close by. They're in competition. I've traveled around the world And the one thing I'll tell you that I've never had somebody turn down $100 bill. They say, we accept local currency only. And you can go up there and try to give them $100 bill and they snatch it out of your hands. And also I found in most countries I travel to that within shouting distance, you can find someone that speaks English, so you're not going to be lost. It was a little more difficult in Argentina, but if you get to Europe, half the people in Europe speak English anyway, so you won't have any problems. A stressful workplace. Let's talk about that. A jobs company did a survey. The new study reveals the average American workplace is, a mental health minefield. 80% of those polled said their workplace is now toxic, up from 67% same time last year. There was a friend of mine that was a congressman, and he had a guy that worked for him that was very, very friendly, very nice, and everybody liked him. And it took him about a year to figure out what he was doing, but he'd say, "Mary, why doesn't Sharon like you?" And she says, "She does. She's one of my friends." "Oh, okay." "No, no. Why do you ask that?" "Well, I just, she was talking about your weight." And then he'd go to the other girl and say, so and so is really, don't tell anybody I told you this, but and he kept the staff in hostilities between each other, and that they'd come to him for advice. If you get somebody like that, you got to let them go quick, or you'll have all the office, leaving and quitting. And so there are some people that are just toxic. You can't put up with them. But more than half, 57% said they'd rather quit than stay in a workplace that's toxic, but they have to do it because they have to have their paycheck. We always have a good workplace environment and that people get along and they enjoy each other. And I think that's very important. 71% of the 1,100 that were surveyed described their mental health at work as poor or fair. 29% rated it as good, and 9% rated it as great. So it's something that has to be addressed. If you've got people in your workforce that really feel like it's a bad place to work, then you've got to address it, and you've got to find out why and see if you can't address those problems. They also, of the people they surveyed, they showed them things. And this is just amazing. They showed them a book of yellow pages and said, "What is this?" They didn't know what it was. They had not heard. A friend of mine played basketball at Texas Tech. Harold Denny is a great player and great guy, smart guy. He was an executive in the Yellow Pages. He worked his way up through SBC and AT&T and became an executive in the Yellow Pages. And lawyers who now are on TV all the time, Yellow Pages was big. They wanted to add a full page ad or a half page ad or whatever. There must be a lot of money in personal injury cases, because no matter what city I go to, and Saturday I was unfortunately in Tempe, Arizona, and that, they go to the nightly news, and it used to be full of car dealers. But car dealers, the plaintiff's lawyers are advertising that, if you've been in a wreck and personal injury, and there's one lawyer that was advertising on billboards, serious injuries. He doesn't take personal injury. He takes only serious injuries. You got to be hurt a bunch. Most people get injured think it's serious. If they're injured, it's like major surgery. People that are having surgery, it's always major surgery. Doctor may not call it major surgery, but the person going to be cut on, they always call it major surgery. And but there's a lot going on in the advertising of law firms. I think in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Corpus, and Houston, I don't know what he spends, but Thomas J. Henry must spend $2 or $3 million a month. I mean, it is unbelievable, and he has good ads. Some ads are not classified as going after the intellect. Uh, some of they used to have the arm wrestling. The guy was a good arm wrestler. Why would I hire somebody that's a good arm wrestler? I want somebody that's a good lawyer. But it's best to know a lawyer, have someone you can depend on, and that's somebody that you can talk to about what type of cases you had. The other unknown was Ann Landers. And I mentioned her one time in one of my classes, and the students just looked at me like a bunch of owls. They just kind of blinked and like, who are you talking about? So I said, does anyone know who Ann Landers is? And no one knew. It's zero out of about 100 students. And I told them who she was, and they said, well, you don't need to write a newspaper, get that kind of advice anymore. You just go on the internet, and there's all kinds of people give you that advice. And that's true. And the same thing with Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages, the internet killed Yellow Pages because they could just they killed commercial ads. In the ads in the newspaper, on a Sunday newspaper, the Dallas Morning News or the Houston Chronicle or Fort Worth Star Telegram, into the big papers, there would be page after page after page of on jobs, on houses for sale, land for sale, everything. And the internet just put that out of business, just changed it. Also, one of the floppy disk. People didn't know what a floppy disk was, and that's those of us that grown up during that period of time, we definitely know. A company that was a huge company and doing great, Blockbuster, and Netflix just put them out of business overnight. I mean, it happened so fast. When you have a business, you better be looking at technology and see what's happening, that there may be some technology coming about that's going to change your business, and you better stay on top of it. Halloween's coming up. There's some couple, and they were in South Carolina, and they had this realistic look that they could put. It looked like the house was on fire, and the fire department got over 30 calls of the people's house being on fire and burning up and everything, and so they toned it down a little and were asked by local authorities. They said it was really realistic. Maybe they missed their calling. They ought to be doing screen sets in Hollywood, but they had it looking like the house was blazing, and people run up to the door and beat on the door and tell them to run, your house is on fire. Be careful on your Halloween display. One thing from CDC, and a lot of people call CDC, they still got bad feelings from the flu, but something they said, and I think it's probably true, that if you exercise 150 minutes a week, it increases your lifespan tremendously. I think that's right. If 150, that'd be 30 minutes a day for 5 working days. And like I say, I always do 45 minutes to an hour every day, and I try to catch up on calls. Put in my ear pods, and I walk the halls of my house. You walk outside, you get so much wind, it's hard for people to understand you. But if you walk in your house, and especially if there's some carpet there, they won't hear you. And you can multitask. Anytime you can multitask and not hurt your quality of work, then you ought to do it. And what I do in that regard is I multitask by exercising and also catching up on phone calls. Some people say that if you can do things like when you go to work, walk a little faster, walk a little further, use the stairs instead of the elevator. But those things, if you do it consistently, it's going to produce big results in your later life. That's where it pays off when you're in your 70s, 80s, and 90s. The saying of the day, We learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope and pray for tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Ken Hance, best storyteller in Texas.